And we're plugged in with Maura Collins. I come to you today with Bob Neri. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Maura.
I was going to say Bob from Westcare. Bob representing Westcare.
There you go.
Which way do you want me to introduce you?
Bob from Westcare.
Bob from Westcare. Thank you for coming on the show today.
You're welcome. Pleasure to be here.
Really excited. Do people come up to you in the grocery store or, I don't know, just wherever and say, hey, you're Bob from Westcare?
They usually come up sometimes and say, I remember when you said, and they'll say something I don't remember ever saying, but it's always good.
They remember something you said
Mm-hmm.
in print media or just, in general or?
Yeah, like a client that I see after.
Oh,
the way
that's
they'll,
awesome.
they'll say hello, and then they'll say, I remember one time we were doing this and then you said this. And I can't ever remember saying it, but it always makes me feel good that something resonated with them and they remembered it.
That's awesome. Is it good to see success stories out there?
Oh, it's great. I think that one of the big misconceptions in addiction is, only one out of every so many get better. We see so many people get better. That recovery is something that people really want when they get the right opportunity. And so you may not come in thinking that this is where you want to go, but once you're involved in learning and healing and all of that, then people, it takes off for them. So it's exciting.
So how did your journey start that you decided, hey, I want to go into the field of addiction and helping people? And how did that happen?
I have an interesting, because let's see, I started in the field in 1974. So, I've been over 40 years working in the field, and it was actually by accident. I was up in Pennsylvania, and I graduated with a teaching degree. I was going to be an early elementary school teacher, and for the summer I needed a job, and there was a farmhouse that had just opened, and they were detoxing people, and they needed a gopher, somebody to go for this and go for that and sit with people. And so that was my first job, and I just kind of fell in love with the people and the work. Stayed there for about a year and a half, and then came to Florida, and then worked for Operation PAR for 23 years, and then I've been in Westcare now for 21. So that's my journey. It was quite the accident. Back in the day, whenever that was all going on, most of the workforce was made up of folks that were, we would say today, in recovery. Back then, they termed themselves ex-addicts. And that was the beginning, because there weren't many people that knew how to do that work that hadn't gone through it. So it was a great learning experience for me to be able to be in a place where I could learn, the fundamentals and then, use that to help people.
That's amazing, because Westcare just has such a big umbrella from what I've done as far as research and working with other recovering addicts, as far as a treatment facility. Then you have sober living, like the mustard seed, transitional living. There's the residential program. I know they do a lot through the drug court and whatnot, and it just seems like it's been getting bigger and bigger. In Massachusetts, where I'm from, there's no big Westcare per se. There's just a lot of different smaller treatment facilities that, make up the area. So you've seen a lot of changes in over 20 years with your position now at Westcare. That's a long time.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that Westcare's in 16 states and 4 U.S. territories. So we're spread out across the country, and then, Pacific Islands, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic. We have programs in all those places. But, it was really, we've been blessed because our CEO has been the same CEO since 1975. And so there's not been a lot of drift in terms of mission or vision or values. And we've been able to just grow because of that. It's been very stable growth. And it's usually what happens is that we end up with opportunities that people invite us in. It's not done in a way that you would think of a lot of businesses where there's a business plan. We're going to go to Illinois, or we're going to go to Indiana. We're going to do this or that. Ours has really been pretty organic. It's really been that there's been a problem, and someone knew about Westcare, and they asked us to come in and help them, and that's how we've grown. So all of our states have had sort of that kind of a story where they've all had a problem, and somehow they knew about Westcare and asked us to come in. So it's been fun being a part of that, because when I came to Westcare, we were in 4 states, And so we've seen enormous, growth over the last 20 years.
So a lot of that has been word of mouth growth, or, use cases or experiences where people have gotten. I'm a product of treatment, 18 months of it en masse, through a therapeutic community for 6 months, and then 3/4 house for a year, and then sober living. So I've been through that whole path, and how much it really meant to me. I can only imagine how, a company, a nonprofit like Westcare could just grow exponentially, but not like the way you think about the U.S.'s addiction. Most people think, different mapped out states have higher rates of relapse and higher rates of addiction or whatever. You guys don't go by those demographics. You go, you expand basically because of word of mouth and success, which is, to me, that's the way to grow.
Yeah, it's been interesting. Just a quick story. Even our Georgia expansion, for example, there was, this was like 2005, and there was a lot of exploiting young girls in Georgia, and still is. And so they would get caught up in prostitution, dancing, and, being involved with pimps and people that controlled them. And so there was a young girl that disappeared who was dancing and so forth, and she ran away. Her mom couldn't find her. And when she showed up in our shelter in Las Vegas. And so as we connected her back to her mom, because they were all desperate searching for her, as we connected her back with her mom, when the group came out to get her, it was her mom, but then it was also the state attorney, the mayor's office, all these people came out. And when they looked at the continuum that we had for youth and adolescents and stuff in Las Vegas, they said, we need a Westcare in Georgia. And so there was a shelter that was having some trouble, and so we came in to run the shelter. And that's how we got started in Georgia. And so it's been more like that kind of story than it has been, like you said, kind of the mapping it out, the plan.
That's amazing. So where do you see the future of Westcare at this point? Do you think it's just going to keep growing? Does it branch out in different... There's so many new addictions that come out, some more recent. Of course, with the opioid epidemic, getting treatment and people being willing to take treatment, that number is huge. Not everyone gets it their first time, but people keep coming back to treatment. Like, where do you see the growth in treatment?
Well, I think that, the opioid epidemic is, like you said, it's a huge problem, and it's really everywhere. And so we've been very involved in both at the local levels in our communities, but also at the policy level in D.C., trying to advocate for more medication-assisted treatment, for more counseling slots, for more residential programs. So that's pretty consistent as we do our advocacy work. The nice thing about being in so many states is that you have a lot of senators and congressmen in those states, and regardless of if they're Republican or Democrat, they usually all are unified behind the fact that we got a bad drug problem in our community, and maybe Westcare could help us with that. And so we've had a number of opportunities that came to us that way too, just in terms of looking at where the science was and where we had a chance to help some communities and to try to do that. And so we've continued to grow that way too.
That's amazing. So what is your opinion on Narcan? Because, once that came about, it kind of gave people the initiative to possibly go get help and treat addiction and save lives. And, we're starting to save some people. It doesn't always work, right? It's not 100% with fentanyl and whatnot. You never know what's coinciding. I'm going to be doing an episode on Narcan prevention with Operation PAR in a couple episodes. But, an awareness in Narcan. I'm Narcan certified. I've been Narcan certified for 13 years. I moved down here, and a lot of people just didn't have Narcan, and I was like, what? Mm-hmm. What are you kidding me? Like, it's important. And now they have the nasal spray, which makes it even more convenient. Like, what was your take on that when that came out?
No, I think it's great. The whole time I've been a big supporter, and we have boxes with Narcan in all of our programs. Clients leave, we encourage them to take it with them, even if they're not planning on using again. It's always good for them to have it. And we've been big advocates for, because most of the overdoses, like over 30% of your overdoses, happen when people are released from either a treatment center, a jail, or an institution. Someplace where they've been in a controlled environment while they were there, their tolerance changed, and probably the potency of the drug on the street changed. And so when they come out, if they think they're going to use the same amount that they used before, it's too much. And so Narcan is a big lifesaver. One of the things that we're involved in that is, I think, pretty cutting edge is that we have a federal grant that looks at the fact that so many of our clients overdose several times. So they might come into the program and they might have 5 or 6 overdoses. Each time that happens, there's a period before the Narcan gets administered where they're actually in hypoxia, which is there's no oxygen going to the brain. And so if you do that repeatedly, they come into the program with a brain injury. And so things to do with the schedule and remembering where they're supposed to do, or remembering what just happened in group, or to make certain phone calls to probation officers, those kinds of things are really, they have a hard time with that, especially for the first 3 months or so. Then the brain it sort of restores itself, and they get better. But early on is when they have the hardest time staying in treatment, and they want to leave. But early on, they have a lot of difficulty because of the fact that they came in with a brain injury. So we have a grant where we're really working with women who come in who have had both from Narcan and also from domestic violence, strangulation, being kicked in the head, things like that, also damage the brain. And so we're really working to develop treatment enhancements that'll focus on their cognition. And so we're doing that. We're doing some supplements, where they get supplements for the brain, and just in general trying to make them aware of their condition and help them get better from it. So
how did, that's amazing, how did the pandemic affect your job and your role within Westcare? Because I feel like a lot of people were isolating and there was some relapsing definitely increasing. And was it more challenging to get people into treatment and to kind of go to bat because everything was kind of frozen? How was that experience for you?
The isolation and recovery don't go well together. Mm-mm. And so even though we pivoted fairly quickly with our outpatient program to using virtual, telehealth models, there still is a need for people to really connect with each other. And so that was it's still a hard time. And you can tell from the data. I mean, overdoses are up, alcohol sales are up, domestic violence is up, suicides are up. I mean, the year has been very hard from a behavioral health perspective. The year has been very hard on the people that we try to serve. So now it's trying to get more of a hybrid model so we can have some face-to-face contact as people get vaccinated and still have some remote, because there really are some benefits to being able to stay connected using the technology. But most people need to have both. They need some face-to-face, and they can benefit from the technology.
Definitely, and I think from a recovering addict perspective, we, as recovering addicts in the rooms, suffered too because we like to do service. So many of us did commitments and would like to go into the facilities and give back because, it pays forward, right? Mm-hmm. Someone comes in when we're in treatment and shares their story, it inspires us to want to go and get the help and stay in treatment and give it a chance. And to have all of that shut down all of a sudden because of the pandemic, that had to be, that was hard on people, I think, that are in recovery too, because a lot of them find the joy of providing that seed of hope, like this show, to help one person out there. Mm-hmm. So, are things getting better? Is it getting easier this year for sure?
I think so. The benefit of the 12-step really is that you're helping another person, but you're also refreshing your memory about where you were. And so it serves two purposes, and I think that now that folks are going to be able to do a little bit more of that, it's going to be positive for everybody. I mean, I think everybody will benefit from it. So I think it is. We have to still be very diligent and careful about, folks that come in and aren't vaccinated or, could get sick or could have result in a quarantine of a facility. So we have to be very careful about that, but the plans are really to try to figure ways to be able to kind of get back closer to where we were before. Absolutely.
Challenges, right?
Always.
Did it ever keep you up at night? You're like, I can't sleep because I don't know what's happening. And
well, the hard part for us, I think, this past year from staying, vital and in business has been that police have been arresting less. The courts have been shut down, so people that did get arrested don't get diverted. And so there's less referrals coming in the front door. When they do come in the front door, there's, a 10-day quarantine, which is hard for some people coming in from jail to have another 10 days, or coming in from the street even, another 10 days of quarantine before you can kind of enter into the general milieu of the program. And so there's been a lot of changes. Groups are smaller, because you can't have too many in a group. So counselors are running more groups, and so it's been, I think being nimble has been, the best thing, because it's been a hard time to adjust to all that.
What can I do to help with outreach?
Well, we always, Westcare is always, our CEO, Dick Steinberg, was a medic in Vietnam and helped villagers as well as our own soldiers. And I think when he came back and took this job, Westcare just became a carry-on of his mission. And so Westcare serves mostly the most disenfranchised populations. So you'll see, homeless, you'll see veterans, you'll see drug offenders, you'll see HIV, you'll see a lot of people that we serve across our system who are indigent, don't have means really to pay unless they're in a Medicaid expansion state, and then they have that benefit to help with their payment for treatment. But it always is, I think we're always thinking about the next person we're going to help, and what do we need to do in order to be ready to do that. And so the values of the organization are really good that way, that you're never going to be asked to compromise your values, that there's always somebody that's going to be coming in the door tomorrow that you want to be ready to help. And so outreach is great. We're always glad to see and have people, coming in and saying that we heard about you, or somebody told us that this is a place we can get help. And even our Turning Point program, which is our wonderful homeless public inebriate shelter in St. Petersburg, there's so many people. There's not a lot of shelters that want to take people that are impaired or drunk or high. So we have one of those. That's our population. Those are people that we love to treat. And so they come in, and you'll see a line around a building, waiting to get in, to the program every day. And so many people will come back and say, I got my start here. I might have started on a mat here at Turning Point, but it got me pointed in the right direction. You guys kept me for 30 days and then moved me to mustard seed and transitional living, and I've been sober ever since. And so, you never know when the right opportunity is going to come and it's going to work out for them. So we all threw our crystal balls away a long time ago about trying to figure that out.
No magic wands?
No, there's no. Sometimes you'll see someone come in and they just seem to have all the right motivation, and they won't make it through. And then you'll see someone come in that fights, kicking and screaming all the way about, coming into the program, and they'll do great. And so, it really just is about being in the environment and to kind of help you get at the right time. I noticed when you said about your experience that you talked about a dose of treatment. And so this is very important for folks to know, is that there's a necessary dose. If you have a bad drug problem, there's a necessary dose of treatment that you need to get in order to sustain your recovery. So, the number is 9-10 months, something like that. It doesn't have to all be in one setting. It can be like yours. It can be 6 months in one and 3 months in another and 3 or 4 months in another, and you put that all together, and it's cumulative, and you get the benefit of having enough new tools to be able to sustain your recovery long term. And so that's the biggest thing, I think, with funders today is, allowing people to get a necessary dose of treatment so that they don't come back again. And it's good to hear that your story was like that, so you were able to put together a necessary dose for yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think I was pregnant a week out of detox, and when I went into treatment, I figured it was 6 months. It's 6 months, and it ended up being 18 months. And I went back to my employer, and he was like, "Where have you been?" I said 6 months. And to someone coming off of drugs and alcohol, 6 months, oh my gosh, that seems like a life sentence, right? Mm-hmm. And you want me to live with 23 other women. And that was a lot. It was humbling. It was something I had to really get raw with myself and get clean for me. And once I did, and I entered a program of recovery in my mind and hit that epiphany that I liked my life clean, mm-hmm. like I felt blessed by my higher power, that was totally different. Like I wanted to extend the 6 months, and I loved the way that I was, not just looking at treatment for what it was to stay clean, but like the other tools like therapy that they offered me, parenting classes, stuff like that, helping me get a job, getting back into the workforce, like getting back to being a normal member of society. I didn't know how many resources there were, to help me get back to Maura, because essentially I was this woman that I didn't even know and was so broken and had nothing. My soul, I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought I was going to be an addict, and I was, only using for a couple years, but I thought that this was my life, and I was scared, and I was newly pregnant, and I'm so glad that I keep playing that tape that if I get high, I'm going to end up right back where I was, and I don't want to be homeless again, and I want to, I like my life now, but I like me for me. Mm-hmm. And treatment taught me how to love myself again. It gave me that fuel that I needed, the support, all those different parts of what treatment did, and those steps of phasing us and helping us get back on our feet. I'm sure Westcare has a lot of that as well, helping you get jobs and therapy and your license back and all that stuff.
Yeah, the wraparound services are critical to somebody being able to sustain their gains. So, what you said was really that, there was enough, you had enough of a personal growth experience that you got traction, and your recovery started to become 90% because you wanted it, rather than 90% because you had to do it. And that crossover where you uncover the motivation for the person, that's a rich experience for folks that are working with you, when all of a sudden it takes and you see it and you know that this person is doing everything now for the right reasons. And that's why people that come in that aren't there necessarily because they have insight into their problem, but they're there just because somebody's asking them or making them, or a spouse or an employer or a judge or probation, or somebody's saying, go do this. And so when they come in, they might not be there for all of those internal reasons, but good recovery will uncover your motivation, and then it'll start to flourish. And when it does, a couple months down the road, you'll be there for all the right reasons, and then it just becomes a beautiful thing.
So seeing people succeed, is that what gets you up in the morning, gets you going, walking with your dog? You think about who am I going to help today, and what can I do to make a difference? For me in helping somebody, and I hope this is true with other folks at Westcare and in the field, but it's about just what you can do to help today. So I don't claim a lot of, I don't claim like your recovery, or I don't claim your relapse, but I can claim for helping you learn that there's a different way to be today, and that there's a different way to treat yourself and a different way to be treated by others. And so that's really the best part for me, is that, there's an opportunity to help a person see there's a different way. New way to live, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a different way than 12 steps, but it works together, I think.
Absolutely.
You can tell when you meet someone that, I'm fine, and they keep, picking up or whatever. You can tell who would benefit from treatment.
Yeah.
And I want to say, out of every 10 people that I meet that I've reached out to, 9 of them need to go to treatment,
mm-hmm. but
just may not know, or just don't have the right resources to know which kind of treatment's the best for them. Like, are there some people that, you probably all do a great job of screening, mm-hmm. and then knowing you need outpatient treatment, or you mm-hmm. need residential, or you need this, and you need this for support, or
right.
Let's get you in the right, the right lane to go down your journey the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, the science of our field gives us sort of a criteria to use. If they have this, they need this. If they have this, they need that. Like you said, the different modalities. And I think that, one of the complexities that I think is in our clients today that wasn't recognized as much earlier is a whole co-occurring issue that has to do with, anxiety disorders, depressive disorders, trauma is a big one. So those kinds of things are now really mainstream part of your treatment and recovery. And a number of people, I think, that end up in the fellowships, and I'm a big believer in the fellowships. I mean, I think it's like penicillin. It's like the best thing for most people. But most people that end up there that don't make it there have some of those complicating factors, and they need more help than they can get from just a structure of the fellowship. So I think that there's definitely a place for everything complements each other. And so there's a place for folks that can get sober and stay clean that are just using meetings and going to meetings, and that's great. And then there are a group of people that need more than that, and they need some help with other kinds of problems that they have that there may be underlying.
That's excellent. So what I'll do is I'll, on my website, put some links on there so people can get some information more about Westcare and the intake phone number and a link to your website as well, so that people can start thinking about, maybe they know someone that has a drug problem or alcohol problem, or maybe it's someone in their family, or maybe it's themselves that is watching this podcast that we can reach out to. I have a lot of people that reach out to me that ask me for help with detox, help with housing, help with stuff like that. I was the vice president at Terra Nova, which is a nonprofit in Pinellas Park, and on the opiate task force here in the county, in Pinellas County. And so I was used to doing a lot of outreach, but I still want to continue to do that and put my best foot forward for Westcare. And I appreciate everything that you do to help recovering addicts.
Oh, thank you very much.
It's very inspiring. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for the invite.
You are amazing. And thank you for giving the hope shot to anyone that they can go to treatment and
absolutely
lead a new way of life. I appreciate you.
You bet. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.